Yeah, I'm glad. Yeah, big idea is really very important. And on top of you finding a lot of questions to do with big idea, you also find that understanding what the big idea is also helps you in a bunch of other questions. So this is, I would say, the most important topic in reading, and you understanding it really help you a lot. So hopefully you guys have been going through the textbooks, um, and like getting the theory part of it. My approach is very different because I know you guys have the textbook, so obviously you can read through it and get a whole bunch of information. But like I said, the biggest thing is you have to understand what the College Board means when they say certain things. So my approach is very action based, and it's very much okay, what should you do, or what do they want? So it's kind of helping you to like it's kind of like an action point. It's very action based. And the whole point is for you to understand, first of all, what is the question? And then second of all, what should I do to get the answer to the question? And another big thing is if you also understand how the College Board phrases wrong answers, that could also help you in the process of elimination. So yeah, so like I said, most of you, well, some of your names are very familiar. So I know some of you have been in these sessions before. So take this as a revision and just to like make sure that you fully understand what what each topic is asking you about. So we'll be looking at the big idea today. And the biggest thing is you need to understand what the big idea is. So the big idea is the topic plus the so what. And this is very important because oftentimes people mistake let me just annotate on my screen. Most of the times people mistake the topic for the idea, and those are two very different things. So it's very important that you understand what the difference is. So what's the topic? The topic is what you're talking about. I'm sure this is a word that we see all the time. The topic is like the subject of discussion. So okay, so topic is, I'll be typing in the chat as well. And also, like I said, feel free to type in the chat if you have any questions or any contributions to what we're talking about. So topic is a subject of discussion. And like like the cheat sheet says, it's going to be the word that appears most in the passage because it's what you're talking about. So for example, if I'm talking about a laptop, right? I'll keep saying the laptop did this, then the laptop, then the laptop. Everything that I say in the passage is going to be about the laptop. And this is very important, especially for you guys, because the passages are very short. It's just like how many lines? Maybe like 5 lines of a passage. So it means that you should really, let me say, how do I phrase this? Okay, so you have a very short passage, right? So it should be relatively easy to figure out what's being talked about from beginning to end. Yes, Gerald? Did you have a question, Gerald? I'm not able to hear. I don't know if you're speaking. I can say you're unmuted. Are you able to type it in the chat? Yeah, I still can't hear you, but if you type in the chat, I'll look at it. Yeah. Um, so the main idea is, sorry, the topic, we're talking about the topic. So the topic is what appears frequently in the passage, but also it's what's being talked about. So if I have 5 lines of a passage, I don't even have time to talk about things that don't matter. Excuse me. Yeah. I don't even have time to talk about things that don't matter because the passage is so short. I have to talk about the topic from the beginning to the end. So it should be hard to be misled because it's so short. Everything has to be focused on like letting you understand what the passage is about. So the biggest thing is as you read, okay, so does that mean the word that appears most often in the passage is the topic? So this one, I would say applies mostly to the old SAT because for that one you had like 95 lines of a passage. So in that case, I would say by default, the word that appears most frequently is the topic. But for you guys, it might not be the case, especially because it's so short. They might choose like a pronoun to replace the topic or whatever. So I would say the subject of discussion is more accurate. So just like what's being talked about. And the way a passage is outlined, or even let's say you're writing a composition or something, before you talk about anything, you have to introduce the topic. So before, like, I can't just start, um, I live in, I don't know, I live in New Orleans. I do this. I have to say my name is Kutema, and then this is what I do, this is what I do. So I would say topic is going to most likely be in the first sentence, and then whatever is said afterwards is going to be about the topic. So like I said, if I say my name is Kutema, and then I start, oh, I live in New Orleans, I do this, I do this, then the topic has already been introduced in the beginning of the passage. So the topic will most likely, or let me just say by default, will be in the first sentence of the passage. And then everything else that follows will be on the topic. So that takes us to the main point, right? So it's that shallow. I can't say the main point of the passage is Kutema. No, that's just the topic. So the topic is just what's being talked about, right? The main idea takes it a step further by saying what is being said about the topic. So that's really the essence of the passage, right? So if everything that I'm saying is about what I do, maybe I love chemistry and I do experiments, whatever is being said after that, it means that you would say the main point is maybe my academic life. So it's kind of just like capturing the essence of the passage. So you don't just end on the topic. You have to figure out what is being said about the topic. And again, you do that by getting like a bird's eye view of the passage. So it's kind of like you read the passage and you step back and you say, okay, what is being said from the beginning to the end? Which, like I said, should be relatively easy because the passage is so short, right? It shouldn't be hard to figure out like what is being said from the beginning to the end. So whenever I asked about the main point, a good approach is to first find the topic. So like I said, it will most likely be in the first sentence of the passage, and then what is being said about it. And you do that by reading the rest of the passage, and then you kind of like summarize it in your mind because you're trying to like capture the essence of the passage. Meaning you're not just looking at one simple detail or something that was said in one sentence. You're trying to like capture everything. Like the example I gave, right? I said I love chemistry, I do research and whatnot. But if you were to summarize all of that in one, you would say, oh, that's my academic life. So you're trying to kind of get what is being said about the topic in one sentence. It's kind of like a summary, but not really. Um, yeah. So you're trying to get what is being said about the topic, and that's really, really important. That you do that as you read. Which is why what one approach that I love most is reading through the question before you read the passage. Because imagine you've reached the passage and you don't know that you're being asked for the main idea. When you're reading through it, that's not on your mind. You have to read it again after you read the question. So if you read the question first and you see, oh, I'm being asked for the main idea, then as you read, you'll be like, okay, what's the topic? So you're reading the first sentence, like, okay, this is the topic. And then you keep reading, oh, this is being said in addition to, okay, this is all about the topic, okay. So by the end of it, in your mind, you've already found out, okay, this is what is being said about the topic. Okay, so this I need to change. So I talked about it being in the introduction of the second paragraph. This would be the case um if you had a very long passage, because then you have a lot of room to like talk about things that don't really matter, right? But because the passage is so short, you find that the main idea is in the introduction, which would be the first sentence. And this part I'll erase because there's not a conclusion in such a short passage. So that just emphasizes where you can find um, the main idea. It will most likely be introduced in the beginning, and then as you read, you're kind of just like building onto it. So that should also help you as like a location point for the main idea. And this also doesn't apply because you only have one paragraph. Okay, and like I said, knowing the main idea helps you also on other questions that are not asking you about the main idea. Because the main idea, like I said, is like you capturing the essence of a passage. So it's essentially testing you understanding the passage. So that also helps you. And even when we get to function and command of evidence, all of those are tied to the main idea. So main idea will keep coming back and back, even on questions that are not asking you about the main idea. So it's really important that that's your approach to reading the passage. Even if you're just reading a passage that's not about the main idea, you should be asking yourself, what's the topic? What's being said about the topic? Because that's really you understanding the passage. So even beyond them asking you about it, you knowing the main idea is very beneficial. Yeah. So are there any questions up to here? Okay. So just to go over what we talked about. We said the topic is what is being talked about. It's a subject of discussion. So it's what's being talked about throughout the passage, not just in one sentence. And then when you talk about the main point, you get the topic and you find out what is being said about it. So essentially getting the essence of the passage. And then, or well, like what message is trying to be communicated through the passage. Then we said you most likely find the main idea in the introduction of the passage. And for such a short passage, it should be in the first sentence. And then as you go through the questions, as you go through the rest of the passage, then you can kind of like cement it. You see what is being added to it. And then you have to know the main idea before going through any question. So biggest thing is that should be approach to reading the passage. You should be asking yourself, what's the topic? What is being said about it? Okay, so we're going to go through some practice questions. Let me just share and okay. Today we use the new SAT practice test tool. And the whole goal is to like, because I know obviously you're not going to write this, you're not going to use this paper on your actual exam day. So biggest thing is just to make sure we understand how to approach the question and like what should be your first step, second step, or what kind of mistakes are you making that you can fix. Okay, so question 8 asks you which choice best states the main purpose of the text. So this is obviously main idea. So main idea has different, they call it by different things. They can call it the main purpose, the central claim, big idea. But you can tell even just by listening to the words that are being used that it's just asking you what's the overall importance of the passage. Okay, so the title will be very important because if it wasn't important, they wouldn't have put it there. So most likely to give you like important context for what is being said in the passage. So don't skip the title, always read it. So this one says the following text is from Georgia Douglas Johnson's 1922 poem, Benediction. So this is a poem. So that gives you the context for it, because if I didn't know this was a poem, it might be confusing or something like that. Okay, so let me open the chat just so I can read. Okay, so I'm reading this passage. First approach is, this one is a poem. So this is more on the literature side. I would say literature in general doesn't really follow the style of science and social studies passages. So it might not necessarily be that first sentence has this, second sentence has this. But either way, you have to introduce the topic in the beginning and then you're building onto it as we go. So we'll do this one together and then we'll practice with the rest of them. So it says, go forth, my son, winged by my heart's desire. Great riches yet unknown await for your possession. So already topic seems to be the sun. So what is being said to the sun. Great riches yet unknown await for your possession. I may not, if I would, retrace the way with you. My pilgrimage is through, but life is calling you. So this seems like advice to the son, right? A lot of it is like, oh, do this, go. Things are waiting for you. And it's like it seems like the dad's about to die. That's not really important. But like the whole theme of this is like advice being given to the son. Okay, so we look at the options. One of the big things about the options is that whenever you're given an option, it should be 100% correct, right? There are those times when you're reading an answer and you're like, oh, the first part seems kind of right, then the last, like that's not the answer. Or maybe sometimes you're thinking of it in the wrong way. But the point is, the answer is supposed to be 100% correct. And one word is enough to make it wrong. So it's really important that you're very detail oriented as you go through the answers. And when you look at the answers, you have a verb. So there's express, suggest, warn, encourage. These words will also be very important in helping you find the answer, because that word could also make it wrong, or that word could make it right. It depends. So let's go through the options. A says to express hope that a child will have the same accomplishments as his parent did. Because of the expressing hope here, it's not like he's talking about the son. He's talking to the son. And which way? I may not, if I would. So the part that would kind of suggest that would be retracing the way, right? Because talking about having the same path or whatever, or the same accomplishments. So this is an example of you just like taking one word and then being like, oh yeah, I remember saying this, then you pick that. But it's not the main purpose because it doesn't capture the essence of the passage. Okay, we have C. Okay, so we'll go through that one as well. B says to suggest that raising a child involves many struggles. There's nothing about raising a child in this passage, right? There's my son, of course. There's what else? My pilgrimage is through. Nothing is talking about raising the child. So that's not the answer. C says to warn a child that he will face many challenges throughout his life. So as we're reading through is the biggest thing is that being talked about through majority of the passage, right? So it's like, oh, winged by my heart's desire, great riches yet unknown, await your possession. I may not if I would pilgrimages through. It doesn't really seem to talk about challenges. I'm trying to see if any part of the passage, let's see. Great riches await. I may not if I would trace the way with you. So remember the biggest thing is to be, what's the word? Objective as you read through the passage. It's very easy to kind of go with your own interpretation and be like, oh yeah, the dad is, like because he's saying, oh, great riches wait your position, I may not retrace. Like it would be easy to interpret it and be like, oh yeah, maybe challenges are going to come and why, oh, this is the son advising his father. That's like the typical connotation. But looking at the words, right, it's more so go and do this. Great riches wait your position. And life is calling you. And this is a constant theme. Like you see it in like three different parts of the passage. So I would say D kind of captures it, right? To encourage a child to embrace the experiences life will offer. So you have to be very objective as you read through. Don't interpret it because that can mislead you, especially for such a literature passage where it's like you're using like allegories and whatnot. It's easy to kind of go beyond what's given to you in the passage. But as long as you stick to what's given, you read the words as they are, and you're keeping in mind like the answer that I choose should be implied in the entire passage, then it shouldn't be hard to find what the answer is. So biggest thing about this question was, first of all, figuring out what the theme is, which is like the father giving advice to his son, which is what made A wrong because it's like he's talking to the son, not about the son. And like being able to get your answer from the entire passage and not just one line or one implication, because that's not going to be the main purpose. Remember, the main purpose is what is being said about the topic. Yeah. So any questions on A, or does anyone still not agree with D? Feel free to, yeah. Okay, great. So we're going to move to another question. Question 9 is function. You can see from there. Okay, great. Then if you look at, so question 10 would be inference. Question 11 is according to the text. So this is literature. Skip to, okay, 12 is for the main idea. Oh, yes. Yes, Jerome. Okay, so let's go back. So C says to warn a child that he will face many challenges throughout his life. So what was wrong about C is that there's nothing that's directly said in that manner. Like if we read through the sentences, first sentence is go forth, my son. So like, okay, go. Second sentence is winged by my heart's desire. So it's like, because of what I want for you, I want you to go. Great riches yet unknown await. So this is like, oh, there are good things out there for you to go for your possession, right? Then this line says, I may not, if I would, retrace the way with you. So it's like, I can't go with you as you venture out through life. And then my pilgrimage is through. So it's like, he is old and, he's not exploring anymore. But life is calling you. So all of this is like, go and do this, go and do this. And there's not any direct part of the passage that talks about challenges. It's more so like, this is waiting for you, which is why D is accurate because it's like just embrace the experiences of life, like just go and do this. Yeah, I would say maybe in this sentence where it's talking about I may not trust the way with you might kind of give off a little bit of, oh, I can't go with you. It's hard, but it's not directly said in the passage. So basically, we're trying to be objective with the information, and like nothing is said about challenges. So that couldn't be an objective answer, which is a big thing on the SAT. You're trying not to use any opinions or interpretations. It's very much what's given to you is what should give you the answer. Yeah. All right, great. So on question 12, asking you the main idea of the text. Okay, so I'm going to read through it and I want you guys to think through it and see what you think. So in West Africa, Jalis, or however I pronounce the word, have traditionally been, sorry, okay. In West Africa, Jalis have traditionally been keepers of information about family histories and records of important events. They have often served as teachers and advisors too. New technologies may have changed some aspects of the role today, but Jalis continue to be valued for knowing and protecting their people's stories. So A says, even though there have been some changes in their role, Jalis continue to preserve their community's histories. B, although Jalis have many roles, many of them like teaching best. C, Jalis have been entertaining the people within their communities for centuries. D, technology can now do some of the things Jalis used to be responsible for. So we have A, thank you. Does anyone have any other opinion or an answer? So if you agree with A, you can put A too, just to see where everyone is. Okay, A as well. Thank you. What does everyone else think? Also, if you feel, we could also use elimination. So if you feel like, oh, this one is definitely wrong, you could also put that in the chat, or feel free to unmute yourself as well. Oh, that's fine. You can still type in the chat. I will, yeah. Okay, so we have A as our option. So A says, even though there have been some changes in their role, Jalis continue to preserve their community's histories. So let's see, let's test this answer. So first of all, obviously, Jalis are the topic because everything that's being said in this passage is about them and their role. Okay, so what is the main idea? So first of all, biggest thing is it talked about, what's talked about throughout the passage, right? So first sentence is talking about their role. So they've been keepers of information. Second role, they have served as teachers and advisors. Okay. Third sentence, new technologies may have changed some aspects, but Jalis continue to be known for knowing and protect. So again, it's just their role. They protect information. Okay, so A says, even though there have been some changes in their role, which is implied by this sentence over here, Jalis continue to preserve their community's histories. So this is definitely accurate compared to the passage because you have throughout it's like this is what they do, this is what they do. Things have changed, but this is what they do. So I agree with A. So let's see what the other options, let's see what's wrong about the other options. B says, although Jalis have many roles, many of them like teaching best. First of all, this is even wrong according to the passage. Nothing is said about them liking teaching. So this is an example of how one word can make it wrong, right? Nothing is said about them liking it. It's just, oh, sometimes they have been teachers. Nothing is said about them liking the role. C says, Jalis have been entertaining the people within their communities for centuries. The entertaining is not even talked about in the passage. So that's out as well. D says technology can now do some of the things Jalis used to be responsible for. This is an example of only using one sentence, right? We know D said new technologies may have changed some aspects of the role, but it doesn't say, first of all, it doesn't even say that it does what they used to do. It's just like it's changed the role. And then secondly, that's just one sentence. So it doesn't capture the whole passage. It doesn't capture what is being talked about in the whole passage. So A is our answer. So that was great, guys. Are there any questions on this or contributions? Or does anyone disagree with A? Okay, so a lot of lessons from this one. First of all, check if the information is factually correct according to the passage. Secondly, make sure it captures the whole passage and not just like one sentence, because that's not the main idea. Okay, so 13 is also a main idea question. So it says, which choice best states the main idea of the text? Okay, in 1934, physicist Eugene Wiener posited the existence of a crystal consisting entirely of electrons in a honeycomb-like structure. The so-called Wiener crystal remained largely conjecture, however, until Feng Wang and colleagues announced in 2021 that they had captured an image of one. The researchers trapped electrons between two semiconductors and then cooled the apparatus, causing the electrons to settle in a crystalline structure. By inserting an ultra-thin sheet of graphene above the crystal, the researchers observed an impression, the first visual confirmation of the Wiener crystal. So A says, researchers have obtained the most definitive evidence to date of the existence of the Wiener crystal. B, researchers have identified an innovative new method for working with unusual crystalline structures. C, graphene is the most important of the components required to capture an image of a Wiener crystal. D, it's difficult to acquire an image of a Wiener crystal because of the crystal's honeycomb structure. So what do you guys think? There we have A. Also, if you're stuck but you've eliminated some of them, you can still type in the chat which ones you eliminated. That would be helpful as well. Okay, A or B. Okay. So C and D are out. Anyone else? Okay, so this seems like, oh yeah, I understand. Thank you, Jerome, for letting me know. So yeah, this seems like one of the longer passages that you guys will go through. But still the same approach of finding out what the topic is and then filtering out the information to see what is being said about it will be very helpful. So if we look at the beginning, we're talking about the honeycomb-like structure of this crystal. So I would say the crystal is the topic of discussion. So now what is being said about it? Sentence one is what it is. So there's a crystal, that's how it looks. Next sentence, okay, next sentence is talking about how no one had concrete evidence of the crystal. Third sentence, third sentence is talking about how it's like a technique they use to find out the structure of the crystal. The last is like a deeper explanation. Yeah, so there's a crystal, that's what it's called, but now we found out how it looks and now we have evidence. Okay, so A says researchers have obtained the most definitive evidence to date of the existence of the Winer crystal. This is true. This is accurate, right? They talked about how there wasn't an image of one, and then they found out that, yeah, it's possible. Okay. So this is factually true. Other thing is it the main idea of the passage, right? So we looked at how the beginning of the passage was just, this is the crystal, and then there was no evidence of the crystal, and then we found evidence, and this is how we did it. So I would say A definitely qualifies because it's talked about not only in one part of the passage, but it's capturing the fact that, oh, they didn't have the image. Then they got the image, and that's how they did it. So if you look at B, it says researchers have identified an innovative new method for working with unusual crystalline structures. So this is very generalized, right? We know that the main idea is specifically about the Winer crystal, right? So even when we're talking about the main idea of the passage, it should talk about the Winer crystal. That's the first thing that I noticed, the fact that it's very general, like crystalline structures. We don't even know if that method could work with other crystalline structures. So there's a question on whether this is accurate. And then secondly, this is only talking about the last part of the passage, which is talking about the technique, right? So firstly, it only captures a small part of the passage, but then we don't even know if it's correct because we don't even know if this method has been used for other crystals. Okay. And then for C, it says graphene is the most important of the components required to capture an image of a Winer crystal. We don't even know if it's the most important, and this is just like one little detail, which we didn't capture the main idea. Then D, it's difficult to acquire an image of a Winer crystal because of the crystal's honeycomb-like structure. So first of all, this is wrong because that's not the reason that they failed to capture the image, right? And then again, it has the same problem of just talking about one little detail in the passage. Okay, so A seems like the most fitting answer because it talks about something that's talked about for a larger part of the passage, starting from the second sentence to the end. And then so first of all, it's factually correct because they did find the most evidence. Second of all, it does capture, the entirety of the passage. The other ones either magnify a small detail or are wrong according to the information given to us in the passage. Yeah, so any questions on this? Okay, I think we can go through one more. All right, thank you, Hao. Okay, so we have, it seems like the pattern of this new format is you have writing at the beginning, reading in the middle, then writing towards the end. So if you look at these questions, these are mostly writing questions. So go to the second part, do the first main idea question. That's function, teacher comprehension, infographics, supporting evidence. Then back to writing. Okay, we'll go through one question from the first practice test. So writing, function. Okay. So question 7 asks what the main purpose of the passage is. So it says in 2007, computer scientist Louis von Ahn was working on converting printed books into a digital format. He found that some words were distorted enough that digital scanners couldn't recognize them, but most humans could easily recognize them. Based on that finding, von Ahn invented a simple security test to keep automated bots out of websites. The first version of the reCAPTCHA test asked users to type one unknown word and one of the many words scanners couldn't recognize. Correct answers proved that users were humans and added data to the book digitizing project. This is really interesting. Okay, A says to discuss Von Ann's invention of reCAPTCHA. B, to explain how digital scanners work. C, to call attention to Von Ann's book digitizing project. And D, to indicate how popular reCAPTCHA is. Yeah, I really enjoyed reading this passage. Okay, what do you guys think the answer is? A, B, C, D. And you can also let me know if you eliminated any of them. A or B, okay. Okay, so other thing to remember is these words are really important. Discuss, explain, call attention, indicate. Okay, so let's go through the passage. I'm really an advocate of find the answer first before going to the options, because the College Board will not put answers that are very obviously wrong, if that makes sense. They'll put answers that have some element of truth to them. So it's easy to be misled if you're using the answers as, like if you're using elimination method, specifically for the main purpose, because some of them are correct, but they just are not accurate. So if we go through, we know that topic of the passage is this scientist's work, how he discovered reCAPTCHA. And first sentence is talking about how it came about. So he found out that, okay, so we have A. Okay, so he found out that printers couldn't recognize some words. Next sentence is he found out humans could read them. So based on that, he made the bots and made the version of the reCAPTCHA test. Okay, so if we look at A, it says to discuss Von Ann's invention. That's definitely what we just said. So we talked about how first sentence is what he was doing. Then he found out how that could be used. Then he made it. And then first version, okay, and then how it works. So this is very much describing the invention of Von Ann. Then if you look at B, it says to explain how digital scanners work. So first of all, it doesn't really explain like the mechanism of the printers working, the scanners. All it says is that he found out that they couldn't recognize the words. So this word how is wrong because it doesn't really express what he said about digital scanners. And then also that's only just one sentence of the passage. And it's talked about scanners couldn't recognize, but it's the same thing that's being said. So it's just like an addition to the invention of the reCAPTCHA test. Then C says to call attention to Von Ann's book digitizing project. So it's not calling attention. Calling attention would be, oh, use it. It's really good. So this word call attention is what this word call attention gives a hint of that's not what he's doing. And then secondly, it's not talking about the book digitizing project. That was just a small part of him finding out what what scanners couldn't do and then using it. And then this is to indicate how popular reCAPTCHA is. Again, this word indicate and popular. There's nothing talking about it being used or whatever. All it's saying is that this is how it was found out and that's how it works. Yeah. So are there any questions? Okay, great. So you guys are doing a great job. I love how for all the answers, for all the questions we went through, there was always a right answer. That's really good. So biggest thing is make sure to continue practicing. And make sure to analyze your practice, because that's one of the biggest mistakes that I think people make, where like, oh, I need to practice. And you keep practicing and practicing, but you're not fixing the mistakes that you're making. Because practicing won't make a difference if you're not actually analyzing why you got an answer wrong, and you keep making the same mistake over and over again. And additionally, on that day, you're going to have a totally different exam. So the fact that you went through practice test one is not going to help you unless you used it to see, like, to fully understand what the question is asking, and you found out something that you can apply to any exam. So biggest thing is, as you practice, be sure to also take time to analyze your answer sheet, and really see like what made me get this question wrong, how can I not make this mistake the next time? Because that's what's going to help you to improve in your finding out of the answer and things like that. So that's really big. Make sure that you take the time. And I know that there are times when we guess and you accidentally get the answer right. So not going through that is also not going to help you. So I would say when you go through a practice test, go through all the answers and see, okay, did I fully understand what I was choosing? And then analyze the question. The same way we did it today. We were like, okay, why was this one wrong? Or how can I find the answer better? We're like, oh, this one is only a small part. So finding that out will help you when you get to another question, because you're like, oh, does this actually talk about the full passage? So be sure to use that. Use your answer key to study as well. Don't just like do it and then move on to the next practice test. That's not going to help you. Yeah, so this video will be uploaded to YouTube. I'll stop recording. If you need to